Hey everyone, welcome to week 2 of our cooking demonstrations. You've seen me on Zoom, but I'm Paul Ikatar. I'm the program manager for Oak Tree Farm. This week we're doing personal pizzas. So mini pizzas, kind of whatever your family calls it. But what we're doing is we're making pizzas based off of the pre-made crusts that you can buy in the grocery aisle. So there's sometimes kind of 2 or 3 per pack. They're all pre-cooked, so you don't have to worry about like stretching dough or throwing it in the air or anything like that. It's designed to be simple. It's designed to be a really easy lunch or dinner that you can do with your family. Rather than having a deliberate recipe that we would send you, what we're gonna do this week is have you follow the cooking directions on the back of the package. What we did already is we already preheated our oven to the correct temperature. And what we can do is just take it from there. We will get our pizzas constructed. We'll put them in the oven. And as they bake, what we'll do is we'll start making a salad. We may talk for a minute, and by the time everything's done, we should be good to eat pizza. So first I'm gonna wash my hands. Should be the start of any cooking that you do at home. You know, I drove here, I touched the steering wheel, I touched doorknobs, I touched keys. All of those have germs, and we're all more likely to get sick kind of around this time of year. So all the better just to cover our bases. So, we have our trash here. We like to set one up on the knob so that way rather than walk across the room to throw something away, it's a nice, easy location so that way we don't have to move too far. Even if we have something messy, it's a quick move. So we're gonna assemble these on our cutting board, which we'll use a couple times over. We have our knife out. One of the things I'm not sure if we covered last week is we have a kitchen hack. So for a safety measure, we put one kind of damp paper towel on our counter in between the countertop and our cutting board. So some cutting boards have like little rubber devices on there to stop sliding. But if we were to cut and hold on to something, this moves a lot. That's unsafe. And if we have a really, really, really sharp knife, something bad can happen. So even just having a damp, you know, just lightly wet cutting paper towel on top of our cutting board, now it feels really stable. This isn't going anywhere. If something feels secure, we feel more confident in our cooking. So, pizzas, assembly, let's open this up. So I'm gonna get my knife, has a knife guard, and I'm just opening it slowly away from me. We're gonna open this up. If you don't have a knife to use, you can use just a pair of scissors. And sometimes there's even a little indentation that you can use to kind of cut it open with your hands. We have 3 here. I'm gonna take them all out and flip it over so that way I can read the instructions. So there's a couple of parts. Preheat the oven, did that. Brush crust with olive oil. So they don't talk about why you would wanna do that, but it does a couple of things. First, it'll add a little bit of color. So it'll kind of darken up, be a nice kind of GBD, golden brown and delicious. Kind of the effect that you'd see at a pizzeria, but what I actually do at home is I'll brush the whole thing with just a little bit of oil. So you have the brush out, you have the oil out, why not just add a little nice color to everything? So there's a couple ways that you can do it. You can either pour the olive oil directly on here. You don't need a lot, just a little bit. You can get a bowl. So we'll just use a very, very, very small bowl. This might have been a craft bowl at some point. So I'm just gonna pour, you know, maybe a tablespoon in there. Again, not a lot. So it's almost the equivalent of, say, like a capful. If you had to like measure that out, pouring a capful and pulling it in there. We have a brush. If you don't have a basting brush like this, you can just use a paper towel. So you can fold up a little bit of a paper towel. I'm gonna brush the bottom, and you can tell it's going on there. It looks a little wet, it looks a little slick and shiny. So again, not a lot. A little dab will do you. So there's bottom side, top side. So they specifically mentioned the crust, so I'm paying a little bit more attention to the crust. And I'll get the inside too. So there's one. We'll do all 3. Here's the top. So again, doesn't have to be fancy. We're just doing this quickly. Here's the bottom. Looks like we're running out in the bowl a little bit, but there's plenty to spare. So that's 2. 1 more to go. So again, paying close attention to the crust here. We'll come back and get the bottom. 1 more to go. All right, here we go, the bottom. And there's still plenty to use. Okay, so we have 3 crusts. You can choose to use any combination of toppings you want. At home, I have a family member that doesn't like tomato sauce at all. So you can just have cheese and toppings. If you like a really saucy pizza, you can put extra sauce. If you don't care for them that much, we're just gonna use kind of a spoonful per. So here is our jarred sauce. It's the same company as our crusts. You can just use, well, pizza sauce is gonna be slightly thicker. You can use plain spaghetti sauce. So if you have a jar of this at home that you used for cooking spaghetti last week, you can just reuse it again. There's been enough time to where it's still fresh. I gave it a good shake. Let me get out a tablespoon. And again, we're not using a lot. This is kind of too much, certainly, for what we're gonna do. Here is 1 spoon. So that goes on. And I'm gonna start using the bottom of the spoon to swirl it around. So it doesn't have to look pretty. We're just trying to spread it evenly. And this seems a little thin. So let me get 1 more. So a heaping spoon. 1 more time around. And I think this is pretty good. So 2 spoons do it. Let me get the next one. So 2 spoons did the trick. There's 1, 2. All right. And for our third, some of the other things that I've seen people do is you can make like barbecue chicken pizzas. You can do spicy pizzas. So if there's any other sauces in the fridge that you think you want to try, you can do that. And again, you know, for say like a barbecue sauce, you can just take the barbecue bottle, fill about a top, you can pour it in there and use the same spoon to spread it around. Adam, do you think we should try a different flavor?
Let's find something different.
Right on. So let's take a quick look in our fridge. We just went through and kind of checked expiration dates recently. So we have ketchup, we have buffalo sauce, we have salsa, we have another kind of hot sauce. Anything striking you, or we can do something different?
We could. I think the red hot would be good for us because we know both of us like hot sauce. If you don't do it.
Yeah.
But really also the red hot and the ranch dressing, if you have maybe a chicken on there, that could make it really great, but we don't today.
Yep.
So we're just gonna do a little hot sauce.
Yeah. Again, we're playing with flavors that we know we like already. So we're not trying something from scratch. I like chicken, I like hot sauce, I like ranch. So the 3 of those would probably work well. So it looks like I'm shaking a lot on here, but in truth, I'm not. This is still less than the equivalent of 1 spoonful. I'm gonna take the same spoon. Since I already did those, I don't have to worry about mixing and matching flavors. I'm just spreading this around. Okay, it looks a little thin compared to those, so I'm just gonna use a little bit more. I don't think this is gonna be too much. I think this is just right. All right, perfect. All right, I'm gonna set these aside. So with each of these, next step would be cheese. So we have our mozzarella here. Again, depending on what your preferences are, you might have like a shredded Italian blend. You might have just plain mozzarella. Some people like a Mexican blend. So again, if you're trying for different flavors, you can kind of match the product that you would with that. This is what we have, so we're gonna use it. And what we'll do is we'll get kind of like a loose handful for each, and again, we'll see where that gets us. there's just a loose handful. I'm gonna kind of just sprinkle on top and spread it around. We can do a better job in a minute. Okay, that looks pretty good. Next one. Sprinkle on top, spread it around. And I didn't think that was enough, so I'm gonna do just a little bit more. Last one. And you can still see the sauce, you can still see the bottom of the pizza, but as these melt, some of those like spaces will kind of fill in. So it may not look like we have enough, but we're also not looking for it to kind of like spill everywhere as it's cooking. Kind of err on the side of using just a little too little because there's still more stuff going on top. All right, so we got oil on the pizza. We have our sauce down, we have our cheese on top. Let's take a look at our toppings. So we have banana peppers, we have pepperoni, and we have a couple of different kinds, and we have mushrooms. I think we may use those in the salad, but you can find those sliced in the grocery aisle, so that way if you feel uncomfortable or you're not really familiar with mushrooms, they come pre-sliced, so you can take them as is and put them on here. We'll add some pepperoni to these. So it's the little silica packet, we'll throw this out. And again, you don't have to be heavy-handed. We just kind of want enough. It doesn't have to cover the whole thing because it will fill in the gaps as it cooks. I'm just going to spread the cheese around a little bit. Last but not least, here is our hot sauce. I think we have a couple left in here, so we might as well just one left. That's perfect. So we'll finish off the packet. That can go in the center. So we have 3 pizzas. Again, you can kind of choose your own adventure. If there's any kind of flavors that you want to play with, there's enough here for you, enough here for another family member, and then a third. So if you want to make this for a different day, if you want to leave the pizza shell, you can put it in a Ziploc, put it in your fridge, put it in the freezer, and then you can pull that at a different time. I'm just looking again at the suggested directions on the back. So we put olive oil on the outside, we preheated, we put our desired toppings on top, and the last step is bake on oven rack or cookie sheet, so kind of in the middle of the oven, for 7 to 9 minutes. And so the cooking times will depend on the kind of oven that you have. We have kind of a plain Jane electric oven, so what we can do is probably set a timer for 8 minutes right in the middle, and we can kind of look inside either by opening the front of the oven, or we can turn on the light to take a peek. But we have cookie sheets today. These haven't been sprayed or anything. They're just regular non-stick. You don't have to do anything fancy. So we'll put 2 on one. So we'll put the 2 pepperonis on one, so that helps us remember what they are. And we'll put the 1 buffalo sauce in the middle. Let me just pick up the extra cheese, that way we're not leaving any of that behind. All right, so let's come around and take a look. Let me see. Oh, here's our oven light, so we can make sure that that stays on. So I am opening this by standing back. I'm kind of leaning my head away because the very second this opens, a big rush of hot air is going to come out. It might fog up my glasses, but it may feel really uncomfortable. This is hot with a capital H. I don't want to take any risks, and even if there's food in there, it might be splatter and other stuff, so being cautious, being careful, okay, is pretty good with this. So I'm opening it up, opening it away from me. It's warm, it's hot, so I'm gonna try to put these in real quick. So first one goes in the middle, next one goes in the middle, and I think that's good to go. We're closing it, the light went off, but we still might want to bake, so I'm turning the light back on. That stays on. And I'm gonna set a timer for 8 minutes. So timer, 8:00, start. And I stayed here long enough to make sure that that's starting to count down, so I know that works. So next up is assembling our salad. So these I'm done with. If I want, I can save the directions to the side. So if I have any other questions, I can take a look. I'll clean up my mess. There's a little cheese left. We might want some extra on our salad or something, so I'll set this aside too. All right, it's pepperoni. We can put that on our salad if we want. But here is bowl for salad. This week we don't have a salad kit. This is just a box of washed lettuce. Checking the label, it says no need to wash. It's good to go. You can choose to either wash lettuce or not, but the other thing that's nice about these is sometimes it has a resealable lid. So that way you can use just a little bit and then reseal it when you're done. And sometimes what I do too, I will actually tear off and put a piece of paper towel in here, and that kind of helps to regulate the moisture. With lettuce, it'll get kind of damp, and if it gets damp, it gets yucky. So having a paper towel helps. Today, the whole thing's going in. We have leftovers that can go back in here. As far as preparing this goes, is all in the pool. All right, so here's our lettuce. I'm putting my spoon in the sink. We're done with this. Putting the lid on the jar. So if I accidentally bonk it, nothing will spill over the counter. Olive oil. So let's take a look at our salad ingredients. We have, again, lettuce, banana peppers if we want, mushrooms, cucumber. We have matchstick cut carrots that opened. If you take a look at these, they look literally like little matchsticks. So with carrots, you can choose what kind that you want to buy in the store. You can buy literally the whole carrot, even with like the green top to it if you want. For ease of use, we talked about having pre-sliced mushrooms. It's the kind of the same thing with carrots. If we know that these are going to go on top of the salad, why make extra work? Why not just use what they already sell, or buy what we know how we're going to use them? So if I'm going to snack on carrots, I buy baby carrots. So it saves me a little time in peeling the whole thing, cutting the whole thing. If I'm hungry, I would rather have something ready to eat than having to make it if I'm choosing between, say, like carrots and chips. Makes the choice a little bit easier for me. So again, matchstick carrots. We have tomatoes. So we'll cut these up. Why don't we start here first, and we can rinse these. Again, happily, if you notice, the top container's full of holes, the bottom's full of holes. So we can use this as the container to rinse in. Cold water. I'll just kind of swirl everything around. Give it a good shake. Now we don't have to get out the sponge and soap. For the most part, these were kind of cleaned in the factory after they were peeled. We're just kind of wanting to get any road dust or anything else. Shake them to drain, and they're good to go. So, in preparing these smaller tomatoes, what we'll usually do is we might halve them or quarter them. So we may just cut them once. So here's a smaller one, and here's a bigger one. So there's a difference in how we might need to prepare those. So with the small guy, we'll take our knife, and what we might do is just hold it, kind of like curling your fingers. I pretend I'm holding a doorknob or I'm holding a jar. It's that same kind of style. So with this, I'll just cut it in half. I think that's kind of good enough. With a salad, you're kind of designing things to be as big as a bite. So you want all the ingredients kind of about the same size. So as we kind of cut mushrooms, as we cut cucumbers, we're gonna try to aim for the same size of ingredients. So when we cut into it, it's, we get an equal distribution, the same amount. So that is a good size. With this larger tomato though, we're gonna cut this a couple of times. So I'm gonna do once long ways, so that gets us that. And I'll do maybe one more down the middle. So it's not exactly the same size as these, but I think it's close enough. So I'll pick these up, throw these in. We'll get a couple more. So these are some of the larger ones. So again, I'm going to cut it down the middle. So I'm being really careful. I'm holding it almost like I'm pinching it, but I'm making sure that I'm being really slow and deliberate as I cut that. Same thing with these. I'm making sure that my fingers are nowhere nearby, and I'm not like being fancy like Bobby Flay or someone. I just want to make sure that I'm doing this as careful as I can and as fast as I'm comfortable. All right. So I kind of used my knife to like scoop everything over, and I'm using my hand to put them in. We'll grab a couple more. So again, these are some of those longer ones. So I'm slicing once down the middle as I'm pinching it, slicing once again across the middle there, making 4 pieces. These guys I'll just do in half. All right, let me grab a couple more. We can move on to the next things. Just checking my timer. Woo, that went fast. We're less than 2 minutes now. All right, so I'm cross-cutting these once in half and once in half again. Once in half and once in half again. So let's call it tomatoes. For cucumbers, what I'm gonna do is I grab a couple of paper towels, and rather than make a trip to the trash, I'll peel a cucumber over these and then use that to kind of gather up peels. So this is our peeler. Your family may have one that is kind of long handled. I like these because it allows you to hold it a bit firmer. This has like a rubberized handle so it feels nice and secure. You can peel a couple of ways. Some people like picking it up and peeling it. You can also, though, if you're starting out, peel it, just stand it up, and you can peel kind of coming down that way. So this isn't slippery down here. This feels kind of comfortable, and I'm just kind of slowly dragging it, and you see how it's kind of binding up? You just shake it off. You know, the inside of this are different shades of green, and some people like kind of sterling white cucumbers, and I don't really care. I just don't want peel on it, so we don't have to worry about that. So a few more to go. Okay, so we'll take these off. I'd say this is pretty close. Let me get that little bit there. And it doesn't have to peel perfect to start. What we'll do here is we will just chop the ends off. Is there some that we could have used? Yeah, but you know, again, I'd rather be comfortable and safe. So with this, I'm gonna cut this in half so it's something a little smaller to work with. Ooh. All right, our timer went off. Let me turn this off. Again, the instructions said between 7 to 9 minutes. We aimed for in the middle, the 8, and what that does is it gives us the opportunity to take a peek. So let me turn on the light. You can take a look. Oh, I turned off the light. All right, what is this telling me? It looks like cheese is melting. There's some browning going around the crusts. This looks pretty good. I'm gonna say let's give it another minute. So I'm gonna go back up to the timer. Timer 1:00 start. All right, so we chose the middle again, so it gave us some extra time between 7 and 9, so we'll use the full 9. Back to cucumbers. I cut it in half, so a smaller piece is a little easier to handle. And with this, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stand it up. I'm gonna cut it down the middle here. So again, curling my fingers like a doorknob, cut it down the middle. And when you're cutting things, working with a flat surface is more comfortable. So can I cut it like this? Yeah, I could, but you know, it's rocking back and forth. It's not super stable. If I now flip it over, you know, this is nice and comfortable. It's not sliding out of my hand. So I'm gonna make half circle shapes. So I'm just kind of slicing through slow, making some half circle shapes. I'll do some more. You don't have to worry about if they're too thick or too thin. Again, what counts is that I'm taking my time and I'm being safe. Scoop those up. That was a fast minute, so the timer went back off. I'll turn the timer off. And what I'd said before with opening the oven is, again, when we open this, now that it's at temperature, a big wall of air is going to come out and kind of slam into us. So what we're going to do is we have one mitt. Let me grab a second mitt. Okay. We will take both of these out, put them on the top of the stove top here, and then we'll close this again. So I'm going to grab this. I'm looking and kind of squatting away as I open it. I'll give it a beat, and then I'll make sure with my mitts that I safely grab these. So there's one. Here's two. I close this again with my mitts. So I'm looking at these. We're taking another closer look. The cheese is melted. There's a little browning action around the crust. You know, this pepperoni curled up a little bit. And I think this is probably good to go. Could it go a little longer? Sure. Some people like super bubbly brown cheese on top. Some people don't. But what we're looking for basically is just cheese to melt, for things to distribute, and for it to look tasty. So now that we've officially checked out that this is good to go, I'm going to turn my oven off. So it's still on bake. I turn it off. Okay, and that goes away. So the oven's off. I'll let it coast to a finish and it'll cool down. I'm putting my mitts next to the pizza so that way I'll remember if I handle it, you know, I have the mitts at hand. So let's go for the second half of the cucumber again. We're cutting small, half circle, kind of half moon shapes. Again, we're not using this rocky, rounded side. We're using the flat side. I'm still curling my fingers, and we're cutting off small pieces. So if I had to kind of describe the width of this, say it's about half the width of a pencil, half the width of a pen. So that's all cut. I can use my knife to kind of scoop everything, and I'll use my other hand to pick it up. There is cucumber. We still have some left over, but we can stick this in a container in the fridge for another time. I'm gonna move this. Next ingredient are mushrooms. So a lot of people don't care for mushrooms. I do. One of the things with mushrooms is you can choose whether to wash them or not. They're good to go, but you might see a couple flecks of dirt on there. This is clean dirt. These are grown in a sterile environment. They're not like taken from the field. It's a special kind of room where they grow these. So again, this is rounded. It's weirdly shaped. We're gonna cut this in half and make it easier to work with. So I'm just gonna cut it down the middle. I'm holding it careful. And like the cucumber, it makes two nice flat surfaces. And now I can slice this again, about the same width as the cucumber. I'm getting about 5 or 6. So they're all about that same size. Those are good to go in. And maybe we'll do like a couple more. So nice and flat. So there's some. 2 more. So here's another, say, round. Might go off the cutting board. So if we kind of cut it down the middle, we have 2 nice flat surfaces. I use my knife to kind of scoop it over. One more. I'll get the big guy. Look at that. All right, so even though it's bigger, I'm still trying to get that same width. It's about like the size of a pencil or smaller. Going small. When it's bigger, it's more awkward. So I'm trying to concentrate more. I'm trying to like pay attention not to go too fast. I've done this a couple of times now, so I feel like I could speed up, but I'm not going to. And this last bit is kind of awkward shaped. So I'm gonna knock it over, and it looks a little smaller in my eye, so it's more comfortable to slice. So no matter what, if it feels strange, if you're not quite sure, try looking at it from a different angle and you might have a better time being able to slice or dice. Last ingredient are these banana peppers. Some people like them, some people don't. Let me grab a fork, we'll fish some out and throw them in. Perfect. We set these aside. So last but not least are our pizzas. So let me grab a couple of plates and we can start dishing up. Okay, so we have the 2 pepperonis, we have the 1 buffalo. There are a couple of ways to slice these. We have our pizza cutter. This is a nice one. It has a nice rubberized handle. These can go through the dishwasher. If you don't have one, you can use the same knife that you're doing and we'll show both. So I'm gonna grab my oven mitt and you can pick these up a couple of ways. If you have a spatula, you can carry it over. I'm just gonna use the mitt. I feel that these are kind of well built enough. You know, the cheese isn't spilling over, so I don't feel like I'm gonna get, you know, kind of a yucky mess everywhere. So I'm gonna use the pizza slicer and we're gonna cut this in 4. So we'll cut in one direction and we'll cut in the other. So I want this in the center of the cutting board. I'm holding the outside and kind of moving it back and forth. You know, sometimes like professionals might like hit it and do it once. You know, I can feel that it's kind of being a little difficult. So you can go back and forth and take your time. Or if you might need to cut it more than once. So I'm gonna try to transfer it over to the plate. It's still kind of warm. Okay, so that cut pretty well. The cheese is nice and melty. So with the next one, we will do with the kitchen knife. So I'm gonna put these mitts back on. Scoop up our last pepperoni. I'm safely transferring it from the side of the cookie sheet to my mitts. All right, so with the cutting with the knife, we're kind of doing the same thing, but we have to like maybe pay a little closer attention to it. So I'm still holding it at the crust and I'm gonna cut through. It's almost like a slight chopping action. Okay. You know, I'm not bringing the knife up. It's staying real close to the board. You know, one of the safety tips in cutting is, you know, your knife isn't really gonna leave the board at all. You're not walking around the kitchen with it. It's not going on a trip. When you're done using it, it should stay on the board. You shouldn't take it across the room. You can't talk to friends with it. When you're using it, it's in your hand. When you're not using it, it's on the board. So I'm gonna transfer these to the plate. So there is our pizza. Here, I'll do a cheese pull for the camera. These look pretty good. With our salad, you can grab tongs. You can use your hands if your hands are clean. You can toss the salad, mix it up a little bit. We have a bunch of different dressing that we'll use, but you know, your favorite dressing is best. Other things that you can put on top of your salad is if you have leftover cheese that can go on there. So you can grab a handful and sprinkle cheese. I like sunflowers sometimes. You can get dried cranberries. Those are excellent. And again, these same ingredients, you can chop them up early and put them on the pizza. So a lot of people like fresh tomato. Mushroom is a classic. I haven't tried cucumber before, but I know someone that's tried carrots, and it's kind of like a crunchy contrast to the crust. So this is our pepperoni pizza on pre-made crusts. You'll find these probably in the same aisle as spaghetti sauce, spaghetti and stuff like that. They come in different sizes. These are maybe 9 inches. You can get bigger size, like 12, 18 inches if you want like a bigger pizza. Use as many as you want. The difference, you can stick in a Ziploc and then put in the fridge or the freezer. And yeah, we hope that you enjoy the meal. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. But other than that, take care. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.